We ready? All right. When I was about 13 years old, I was enthralled with the Star Trek series that was coming on, and that was Gene Roddenberry's invention. That was back in 1966 to 69. I know I'm aging myself, okay, but don't I look young? Okay. Anyway, I used to think the transporter system was to die for, okay, because one moment you could be standing right here, okay, and the next you step up on the transporter deck, get in one of those circles right there, and this beam would come down, okay, and the person looking at you at the control panels, they'd see this crystalline energy light coming all around you, and pretty soon you became this crystal energy light, and then boop, you were gone. And over there, on the place where you were transporting to, you would show up as this crystalline energy light, and then there you were. I used to think, boy, that's the way to go, okay? Here, this moment, the next moment, you are light galleries away on a planet, on a surface. And then I realized that we have a greater transportation system that is always available to us. We don't have to have a Star Trek Enterprise, NC 1701. We have our own transportation system. We were born with it. The greatest transportation system in the world is a train of thought. I got the idea for today's message from an article that was written by J. Sig Paulson. And he wrote, "Our train of thought can and will carry us wherever we direct it to. And we're always directing it by choice or by concession. Like the conductor of a real-life train, we are at the control panel of our own engine of mind. And behind us trail boxcars and boxcars of thoughts and feelings." I'd like for us to take a look at the word train for a minute. My old dictionary says that, number one, do people still use dictionaries? Okay. Some do. Yeah, well, that ages me too. Okay, I've got one, an old Webster standby. Okay. I don't automatically turn to my cell phone, you know, or the computer. But number one, a train is something that hangs down and drags behind. Isn't it true that the wrong kind of thinking can cause us to hang down and drag our behind? Number two, a train is a group of persons who follow as attendants in some procession. And we also find that certain thoughts can be helpful to us, can lift us up, can encourage us and inspire us, and can minister to us and assist, just like attendants in a procession. And the third definition that I wanted to work with is that to train means to discipline, to condition, to guide or control a physical aspect, a mental or moral development of ourselves or someone else. And I believe that if we're willing to take a closer look at ourselves, we will find that our thoughts do this as well. Our train of thoughts trains us. Let me explain. We are guided, we are controlled and conditioned to respond to experiences in our life based on the thoughts that we hold in our consciousness. Unity calls it the law of mind action. Thoughts held in mind will produce of their kind in our life experience some kind of way. In his book, The Power of Constructive Thinking, Emmett Fox emphasizes the idea that the thoughts that we allow ourselves to think and the subjects that we allow our mind to dwell on, these are the things that determine our whole character, he wrote. He also explained that the present condition of every phase of our life, in fact, he said, is entirely conditioned by the thoughts and feelings that we have entertained in the past, or by the habitual tone of our past thinking. Now, there are a couple of things, I think, to point out in what Emmett Fox says here. The first is that these thoughts that are formative in us are not those casual one-night stand thoughts. These are thoughts that we entertain. These are thoughts that we open our heart and mind to. These are thoughts and ideas that we accept in our consciousness. In fact, we hold the door open, we let them in, okay? We feed them, as you would any guest, with our time, attention. We feed those thoughts. We nurture those thoughts. We get so cozy with some of these thoughts and feelings that we invite them to come live with us in our consciousness. And it is these kinds of thoughts that we open ourselves to, that we feed and nurture, whether those thoughts are saying, I am a wonderful expression of God, or I'm a worm of the dust. Whatever those thoughts are, when we invite them in and make them home in our heart, in our mind, we find that it influences our character. It influences how we relate to everything and everybody in our world. If I think of myself as a radiant expression of God, full of light and love, I'm going to relate to you differently than when I think of myself as a worm of the dust. Don't you think? It's not magic, it is the law of mind in action. A spiritual principle. It's the same thing with computers, you know. Good data in, good data out. And I'd like to just remind everyone, though, that rain falls on everyone. Scripture says that the rain falls on the good and the just, the poor and the rich, the high and the low. What we experience, we label it good, we label it bad. Okay, and there's this story, okay, and it's been shared here before, and I'm not going to go over it, but the idea is that we call something, and that's what it becomes to us. But the marvelous thing about all of this, and this train of thought thing, is we can choose to change the tracks that our thoughts are traveling. We determine what our response to life experiences is going to be. And based on how we respond and the thoughts that we hold about ourselves and the situation and the other people and what they're doing and what they're not doing, okay, when we hold on to those, that's what we program. That's what influences the character of our lives. When I was growing up, my dad loved to watch Westerns on TV, and so we watched, what was it, Gunsmoke. Was that the one with Miss Kitty in the bar and that kind of thing? Okay. We watched a Rawhide, okay? Rawhide. And we also watched Bonanza and anything with John Wayne in it, okay? And later on, my dad also added Clint Eastwood. Go ahead, make my day. But the one thing about these Westerns, the train and the stagecoach were always being robbed by the bandits, okay? They knew the schedule of the train. Now, the trains were the way the money was transferred from bank to bank. They didn't have any other way of moving it, so it rode on the train, and the bandits knew this. Jesse and everybody else, you know, their thing was to rob that train, okay? They get on their horse, okay, and they're riding, they catch up with the train. They get close, and then they jump off of the horse, leap onto the train. Now, it's all in motion, okay? Okay. Then they go down and get inside, entering one of the windows, I guess you call it, whatever. And they not only took the bank money, they went up and down the rows, okay, making people empty their purses and take off their jewelry and all this stuff. It was a full heist. And almost every Western had something like that in it. The stagecoach being robbed, okay, or the train being robbed. But you know, our train of thought can be robbed as well. We can be hijacked, just like those trains were in the Westerns, by ganging up on us and chasing us down with unpleasant experiences and unfortunate circumstances. Our negative thinking can rob us of inner joy and the valuable experiences of having enthusiasm, having peace of mind, feeling self-confident and self-esteem. Our negative thinking can rob our train of thought if we let it. Here's a story about a man whose train got hijacked? Whose train of thought got hijacked? It was a salesman, and he was driving on a lonely country road one dark and rainy night. And he had a flat tire, so he stopped. He had to stop. But when he opened up his trunk, he couldn't find the lug wrench to change the tire. So it's raining, and he's looking around, and he sees a light further up on the road, a small light, but a farmhouse up there. And so he decides to walk up, because surely the farmer would have a lug wrench that he could borrow. So he starts out, and he's walking through the rain is pouring, okay, but he's making his way to the farmhouse. And he begins to think, well, you know, it's late at night, and I bet that farmer's going to be asleep in his warm, dry bed. And he began to think some more and thought, well, you know, maybe the farmer won't even answer the door. And if he does answer the door, he's probably going to be angry at being awakened in the middle of the night. The salesman is picking his way blindly in the dark, stumbling on. And by now, his shoes and his clothes are drenched. And he begins to think, well, even if the farmer does answer my knock, he's probably going to shout something like, "What's the big idea waking me up at this hour?" This thought made the salesman so angry. What right did that farmer have to refuse him the loan of that lug wrench? After all, here he was stranded in nowhere land and soaked to the bone. That farmer was a selfish clod, no doubt about that. The salesman finally reached the farmer's house, and he banged loudly on the door. A light went on in the house, and a window opened on the upper floor, and a voice called out, "Who is it?" His face white with anger, the salesman shouted, "You know darn well who it is, it's me. And you can keep your blasted lug wrench. I wouldn't borrow it from you now if it was the last lug wrench on earth." And he storms away. I would say that this salesman's train of thought got hijacked. His train of thought ran completely off the tracks. And I'd like to share a personal experience where my own train of thought ran off the tracks. Because my twin sister, and she will remind everyone that I'm 5 minutes older than her, but my twin sister is going to be turning 65 in December. But because Katrina is going to be 65, I have been deluged with people calling my home phone wanting me to offer them information about Medicare. It has been relentless. They have been calling from the early morning until late at night. I do seem to experience a reprieve here now on the weekends, although when I was writing this yesterday on Saturday, I got a phone call. The ID said it was from Kansas, so I thought, heck, it may be someone I know, maybe someone associated with our church, so I picked it up, and it wasn't. And I began speaking with this woman, and she began giving me her insurance company's spiel. And going on, I gotta admit that my train had started to veer off the track. Actually, before this call on Saturday, because all during the week, the calls kept coming, and I didn't have sense enough to take the landline phone with me everywhere. Okay? So I would have to go to the phone to look at it to see whether it was a number that I recognized. Okay? And so that had me jumping up from the computer or from whatever I was doing to go to the kitchen landline phone or the office landline phone. Okay? It wore me out. But more than that, I was getting irritated by this. And so I decided, I'm not going to, when I get there, now, granted, I try to be loving and patient whenever I get telemarketing calls, and I'm not one to yell at somebody over the phone and slam the phone down in their ear, okay? So most often I try to speak words and share that I'm not interested in a very nice way. Well, it wasn't working too well. Because these people knew that I needed to be looking up this information and getting this information and making this connection. And I wondered, I should call Katrina to see whether because it's her fault, okay? She's the one turning 65. And I'm getting all these calls, okay? And find out whether the same thing is happening with her, but I'm afraid of what she's going to say. It's your fault because you're turning 65, BJ. That's why I'm getting all these calls and being bothered with all these interferences, because these things became interferences, and so they began to irritate me, okay? I began to think like this salesman here. These people are not interested in me. They just want to call me and have me sign up with their insurance company. They're after the money that I can make them. You see how my train of thought was slowly veering from the track? And it got worse, okay? To think of something so that these folks would let me off the hook, okay? Why I couldn't just slam the phone down like other people, I don't know, but I've never kind of done that, okay? And so I came up with this kind of white lie. Since I have been exploring different medical insurance plans and that kind of thing, I said to the caller, well, I've decided on another company, so I don't need your assistance, but thank you very much for calling. And most would say, okay, well, hey, have a great day, and that would end it, okay? They're happy, I'm happy. But Saturday, this woman called. I picked up the phone. Oh yes, and I had begun deciding that I was not, when the caller ID identified the call as not being in the state of Kansas, I decided chances are they weren't members of my church or that kind of thing, so I'm not going to answer the phone. I even began picking up the phone and putting it back down. Okay? Not something I really like to do, but I wasn't slamming it in their ear. I would gently put the receiver back down. But anyway, I picked up this phone. The ID did say it was from Kansas, somewhere in Kansas, okay? But I didn't recognize this woman's name. But anyway, she began with the company spiel, okay? And I said, no, I'm sorry, ma'am. I have already decided on a plan and a company, and I don't need your services, but thank you anyway for calling. And she just jumped right in there as if she hadn't heard me and continued the spiel where she left off. Well, by now, my train is about ready to actually jump the track, okay? And so she went on with her spiel, and I'm thinking, well, do I hang up? I should have hung up on her, but I didn't, okay? So, I don't know, something grabbed me. Something grabbed me, and I said, ma'am, excuse me. I just shared with you that I have already selected another company. Why would you, I said, I'm nice, I'm being pleasant. Why would you want to continue this call with me when wasting your time and my own time when you could be talking with someone who's going to purchase your insurance? She stopped talking. She listened. She took a deep breath. I could hear her on the phone. And she said, ma'am, is there some reason why we are choosing to be rude now? Well, that did it. My train of thought jumped the track. And I said, lady, I just shared with you in a very nice, polite way that I'm not interested in your service. And click, then she hung up on me. I did not realize until much later what a blessing this was, because I had an example to share with you, okay, of how easy it is to be influenced in a negative way by the things that other people do and say. And I built up this whole thing in my mind because it was traumatic for me having to run and answer the phone call. I thought, I've got too many projects to be messing with this. I don't have time for this, okay? I'm going to explore all this when I have time and when I want to, okay? And I was not being very honest with them or with myself, okay? And I was letting this get under my skin. And then I realized what I was doing here, and I thought, wow, my train of thought really jumped that track. I've been hijacked. And then I thought, well, what are you going to do about it, okay? And we teach tools and methods and the the ability of prayer and meditation to move us and to put us back on the track that we want to be traveling. And so I use some of those skills. I'm going to be sharing with you a technique called the answer attitude. And this can be found in a book called Prayer, the Master Key by Charles Roth. And in what you have in your program there, I have used my own example of being hijacked and my train of thought being run off my track to share with you how I put myself back on the track, the road that I want to be traveling, becoming and expressing who I truly am as a spiritual being, expressing light and love with God. I had to forgive myself, first off, for letting myself be caught up in all of this. You know I know better. But hey, my human self is still learning. Yes, spiritually, I am a perfect expression of God. So are you. But in this human self that I'm learning to navigate and learning to reach out and connect and grow as I experience what we call life here, I've got a ways to go yet. And that's okay, because I'm willing. So the first thing I had to do was forgive myself and remember that that person on the phone, that's God too. And every conflict, we learned about that in class this morning. Every conflict, every troubling situation, every problem, every challenge, every difficulty can also be the avenue through which we receive a blessing. So I would say that this caller from Kansas, though I chose not, she didn't give me the chance to buy her insurance, okay? She hung up on me, okay? I think we both had learned what we needed to in that experience, and Spirit said, that's enough. And I was amazed at how easily I, your minister, can leave the track that I want to be following in my life. And so I had to forgive myself for this, and I had to forgive the other person, and I blessed them, and I thank this woman for showing me what I need to work on and for giving me this illustration this morning. I guess about this call, what was different is that the other people I spoke with, once they heard my spiel, they let me go, and they said, it's fine, well, thank you, good for you, or that kind of thing. But this woman didn't go for it, okay? She was intent on her own schedule, her own train track, and probably because I needed this lesson. You see, when we find ourselves getting upset and getting disturbed and getting caught up in stuff, whether it's trivial stuff like this or heavy-duty growth stuff, okay, problems and situations, the actions and words of others, and we get caught up in reacting to these things negatively, not from a center of light and love, okay, then it's an indication that our train of thought is leaving the track. And it's also a prompting to pay attention to ourselves and what we're doing with our thoughts, our consciousness, because thoughts are things. And I had to stop, and I had to pull the throttle and stop my train so that I could ask myself, who's running this train? Just who's in charge? Am I in charge of my thoughts, my words, and my actions? Or am I allowing myself to be derailed by my negative reactions to what others may be doing or saying? We know that we are given this dominion over what we can do and what we want to do with our thoughts. Jesus gives many illustrations in the Bible of people who became aware that, hey, who's in charge here? That we had given our power away to circumstances, to situations, to problems, to pain. And that we can always pull that back to ourselves and get in touch with the true power that God is in us, the true guidance that helps us maintain ourselves on that track And that track, hey, it's leading us to a greater awareness of our true connection with God. Thank you. Now, in your program, there are 6 basic steps for working the technique or the process called the answer attitude. Number 1, with honesty, you take a look at what is actually bothering you. So I had to say to myself, in this situation here where I was getting so caught up in this and feeling frustrated, what is the problem? What is my problem in this? And once you sit down with yourself, write this down, write it out. You'll see in blue my own example here. I was feeling frustrated because I had to keep jumping up. It took me away from what I was doing. I had to keep answering these calls, and I felt that they were pressuring me. I felt that they were using me, that they only wanted me for the money that their company might make. All of these things, okay, were going on as my train was slowly being hijacked by these negative thoughts, okay? So number 2, you pick out the negative words and the phrases that you have used. You write this out, and then you pick out the negative words or phrases that you have written. And you take a look at these, and you write out the opposite of those negative words. Replace them with an affirmation, okay? With something positive, with something that you would want to experience in place of that. Number 3, you write down these positive words or phrases in the place of where the negatives were. And placing these in, you then write out this whole new, it's basically a spiritual prescription. Kind of like, the pills that you take for your health or your vitamins, a spiritual prescription in the form of an affirmative statement that you can use. Take a look at what I have back here in blue. So what I wrote out in number 1, I was feeling annoyed by all of these insurers calling me. I felt frustrated that I had to stop what I was doing to answer the phone. I kind of felt that, it was taking time away from what I wanted to be doing. And I felt like, well, I might now be rushed because I didn't have time to finish these projects. It was interfering with, to me, the things that I wanted and needed to be doing. So, down in 3, God's answer. When I changed those words, feeling annoyed and frustrated and having these concerns about time and all of these other things, it came down to this affirmative statement that I will continue to work with. I am feeling at ease and relaxed in my day. No outside experiences have control over me. The Medicare callers are just doing a job, their job to earn their livelihood. It is my choice, and I choose to answer a call or not. I am at peace about the interruptions to my work and the projects because I know that I have all the time that I need to complete the work that needs to be done by me. I will send for information about Medicare, and I feel no need to rush into a plan or choose a provider until I'm ready to. I take my time, I listen, and follow divine guidance as I choose and do what I need to do for my own life, because I know that everything in my life is in divine order. Thank you, God. So I came up with this wonderful affirmative treatment for what was troubling me and being a problem for me. And I invite you to explore using this answer attitude. Now, what you do with this is you meditate on the answer, God's answer, or the affirmative statement that you devise, that you create. See yourself being blessed by that situation. And no doubt that things will change about the situation or change in you so that you relate and deal differently with the problems that you are being challenged with. God bless you. So would someone get the lights? I invite you to sit back, to relax body and mind. And we will explore this answer attitude a little bit more. You might like to close your eyes. Let this be the signal that you are choosing to focus your attention inward, away from the sights and sounds around you. Take several deep breaths, if you like, and allow yourself to relax as this breath enters, bringing quietness, and your exhalation leaves, taking with it any feelings of tension, stress, or strain. Breathe in peace. Breathe in calm. Breathe in quiet and relaxation. Breathe out any fear or worry or anxiety, any tension, anywhere in your body. Just blow it out with your breath. Continue to be aware of your breathing. Your inhalation, which brings you to an even more relaxed, quiet place. And allow yourself to be in this moment, in this experience of quiet. There is nothing that you need do. You're not trying to get any place. Simply be present with yourself, with your breath, relaxing. And you will find that your mind may want to wander off into thoughts and fantasies. You may be tempted to think about past and future, what you need to do. But when this happens, bring your attention back to your breathing. Ride the waves of your inhalation and exhalation. And use your breath to bring you into a state of relaxed awareness. You may become aware of sensations in your body. And you can feel what you feel, but you are not attached to it. You continue to be aware of your inhalation and exhalation. Whatever feelings come up, you can be with them without judging them, without reacting, just being fully here. Moment to moment, being fully present with yourself, not attached to any feeling. And now as you sit, you allow the field of your awareness to expand. This time, you expand your awareness to include thoughts as they move through your mind. You become aware of your thinking process. Rather than focusing on any particular thought, you allow these thoughts to come and to go. They enter your mind and you release them. You just observe. And then you realize that within you is a presence and power. We call God, some call it divine love, infinite wisdom, infinite is. This presence in you empowers you to be able to let go of those thoughts and feelings that would move you along the wrong track in your life. This presence and power in you frees you so that you can release and free those thoughts that cause you to feel lack and limitation. Those thoughts of worry and fear. And when you find yourself getting caught up in a negative train of thinking, you realize there is that in you that is the freeing power. You can always choose to think of God instead. To be aware that in that troubling situation that you are faced with, there is the activity of God, the activity of good. And be aware that you have available to you this process called the answer attitude, which says that the answer to any problem or situation troubling you is in the question that you have in your mind about that situation. You see yourself sitting down with pen and pencil and writing down exactly what is troubling you, bothering you, using whatever words you need to express what you are feeling. And you recognize that God is working with you in this process. And you see yourself taking a look at what you have written, identifying those words and phrases that cause you to feel lack and limitation, worry, anger, or any of the negatives. And you let divine guidance flow through you and help you write out a spiritual, positive affirmation to substitute for those negatives. And you see yourself writing these affirmations down. For each word or phrase of negativity, you write down a word, a phrase of affirmation of good. And as you see yourself writing this down, you feel a change happening in yourself. You feel more free. You feel released from the bondage that this situation may have had over you. And in this last step, you rewrite your original statement. And now it becomes a prescription, a spiritual prescription that you can use in your meditation, in your prayer time. Affirmations that directly influence and reverse the negatives that you had in your original. And you see yourself being enriched by this process, by this tool, this technique. And now allow yourself to feel a sense of gratitude and appreciation for this experience. You're able to bless, that is, see that the good that can come to you through any problem or challenge with which you are faced. And in your own way, thank God. And so it is. Thank you, God. And when you are ready, take several deep breaths and allow yourself to become aware of your surroundings, the sounds around you. And when you're ready, open your eyes to the sights around you. Thank you, God. Amen.